Hi, welcome to Disruptive Conversations with me, Dr. RISA RYGER. We are so excited, and I'm so excited to be here today with you. We're just waiting for people to start to come on. And wow, this has been so great. I'm looking for the invitation from our guest, and I've got this happening right now. Has joined, Carly has joined, Azal has joined. Thanks so much. You're from Pakistan. Welcome. And we're going to let a few more people come on. And you're a dietitian. Thanks so much for letting us know, Azal. Wonderful. And we have such an exciting time to get today with the amazing Katie Fogarty at KPC 0323. Sorry about that, has joined. Welcome, welcome. And we're going to get going in just another moment. Today has been a glitch-free, so far so good. I don't want to jinx anything, entry onto Instagram Live. And actually, that's going to be one of the points that we talk about in terms of our own growth and really welcoming new experiences. And here, M. Cavill has joined. And so we're going to get going. And I want to welcome you all to Disruptive Conversations with me, Dr. RISA RYGER. And it's a series of conversations in which thought leaders, entrepreneurs, educators, authors, influencers come conversations happen weekly. So please, I don't want you to miss any because I don't want you missing this important information. So please do follow me so that you get the info and you get the information that I drop every week. And today we're here with me and Katie Fogarty. And as I said, I'm Dr. RISA RYGER, clinical psychologist. I'm an expert in change. And I help people make positive change at any point in their lives. Now, one thing for sure is that you can't have change without disruption. And you need to disrupt thought, feeling, beliefs, habits, behaviors in order to create your 10.0 life. And that's what this series of conversations is all about. And so without further ado, I want to welcome, and I'm so thrilled and delighted to have Katie Fogarty. One of the things that I've learned so far is I have women on who have just incredible backgrounds. And so I need to read part of their resume because I can't remember it all, and I want to give them the honor that they have achieved. And so Katie, her background is TV news, writing, global PR. She's been on Capitol Hill. She's worked with small startups. She's a career coach. She's a New York City, grown up in New York gal, and now on Long Island with 3 children, a husband, and what she calls her pandemic puppy Lilac. I have what we call a demic dog, and that's Penelope. And so Katie, I gave you an initial introduction. So please fill us in a little bit more on the introduction that you'd like us to have as well.
Thank you so much for this invitation. I'm excited to be here with you. I love having conversations about how we can disrupt ourselves. When you listed all the jobs I had, I thought, wow, some of them I'd forgotten. But the 2 hats that I wear today, I am a career coach. I run a sort of a personal branding communications company called the Reboot Group. So I help senior executive, business owners, entrepreneurs reboot how they communicate their work, their value, their career story, so they can better communicate with their customers, achieve thought leadership, win influence, win jobs. And my second hat that I wear is I am a podcaster. I have a midlife podcast called A Certain Age, and that show helps women thrive in midlife.
That's so fantastic. And age is something that, is, by the way, it happens to all of us. So regardless of where you are in your life, that in order to be able to live, we have to embrace and figure out how we deal with and how we navigate aging. So my first question to you, Katie, is what is it that you needed to disrupt in yourself in order to be able to be where you are now with the success that you
so
have
interesting.
achieved?
So I feel like a lot of I think I had to be able to say yes to new opportunities and sort of no to the fear of change and the fear of being uncomfortable. And I think for many years, I was not, I don't want to use the word stuck because that sounds dramatic, but I wasn't progressing in the way that I wanted to because I had fear, I had trepidation, I had anxiety around making change. And when I was able to sort of disrupt that narrative, to sort of reframe the idea of, change as something that was positive and exciting and that allowed of growth, I was really able to put myself on the trajectory for where I am today. I did that with so many different things in my life. I mean, for example, I used to be afraid when I was younger about public speaking. And I had this narrative in my head that public speaking was hard. I wasn't good at it. People who were successful at it just sort of were naturally good. And I eventually disrupted that thought for myself. I had a conversation with a friend who said, no, people are not naturally good at public speaking. They have to practice at it. They have to put the work in. They have to, do the 10,000 hours. And it was really this light bulb moment for me where I realized that I've been telling myself a story and believing it to be true. Like I was accepting it as facts. And when I recognized that, I could put that work in. I could take public speaking lessons. I could learn to be uncomfortable and try new things on, first in bite-sized pieces. I would speak to small groups. And ultimately, I can be on stages now of 2,000 people and feel excited about walking out there instead of nervous. So I guess, I feel like I'm continually disrupting myself. I don't feel like I'm on the others. I don't feel like I've done it successfully. I don't feel like it's over with, if you know what I mean. I feel like every time I try something new, learn a new skill or put myself in new situations, I'm disrupting myself. Disruption is
Absolutely. I think that's so important. And it's really important for people in our audience to hear is that, sometimes when you get to this space now, I had never done Instagram Live, and this is a new venture for me. And when I saw people get on and do it, I thought, oh my gosh, they're so incredibly wonderful at it. And they were. And I thought, well, it's not going to happen. You can't wake up and be doing it. You can wake up and be trying it and seeing what comes up. And that, we have this illusion sometimes when we see a polish and people who are so articulate and things are just happening. And it's so easy for us to think, oh gosh, that really can't be me. That can't be me. And that, wherever we are, that's our spot, and like, come get comfortable with that. So when you went to do your first foray of disruption, could you share a little bit of that experience
for the podcast here? Or just what? Just my...
Up to you.
I guess I'll start with the podcast
because
that's something that I'm doing. It's the newest thing that I'm doing that's new. And I launched the podcast 2 years ago. And when I set a goal for myself of doing this, I sat on that goal for a year. I really just said to myself, like, someday I'm going to launch a podcast. And we all know that someday never happens unless you make it happen. And so I finally got frustrated. It was right when I was turning 50. And I had said to myself, when I'm 50, I'm throwing the most epic ladies' luncheon with all the women in my life that I love, and I'm launching a podcast. And then 330 days went by, and I had not launched the podcast, and I was about to turn 51. And I thought, this isn't going to work. Like, I have to get in action today. I'm not missing this goal I set for myself for this milestone birthday. And I called an audio engineer that I knew. I booked and paid for 4 recording sessions, so I sort of committed a little money. I put some skin in the game. I told everybody I knew I was launching a podcast to make myself publicly accountable. And I booked my first 4 guests and I recorded those shows. And I recommend this. This is like jumping in the swimming pool, right? You just have to sometimes put yourself in action, put yourself in the situation where you're going to be forced to swim. where you're going to be forced to keep going. And for me, it worked. I've recorded 130 shows. So if I had not, forced myself in at the very last minute to keep this promise to myself about something that I knew I wanted to do, I would not be here. I would still be waiting for someday if I hadn't just sort of catapulted myself into the podcasting pool.
So one of the things I want to talk about, just to comment on, is that how do you make someday today? Now, someday today for each and every one of us doesn't have to be, hiring a recording studio and a sound engineer, but someday today is, what is it that you can do today to get you into a spot? Now, you, Katie, you like, not only did you jump into the pool, you climbed up the steps to the high ladder, and then you went from there, and you did one of those dives where you tucked your toes, you turned around a couple of times, and then you go head first, and your legs are together going in, and you come back. Now, but that is incredible. But for everyone, that there is something that you can do. And what is that for you today? And think about it while you're listening to us. Think about, what is an action step that you can do today? Is it a phone call? Is it an email, responding to an email? Just whatever it is. And this is so important, that every single thing that you do is better than doing nothing. Think small wins over nothing.
I would say done is better than perfect, because I think a lot of people, myself included, who are sort of type A, that are used to like getting good grades and checking certain boxes and sort of goal and accomplishment oriented, you can become paralyzed by waiting for things to be perfect. And done is better than perfect. This philosophy does not work if you're, say, a cardiac heart. I want to echo what you said about incremental progress, right? We have to go step by step. And sometimes we wait for like the big sexy goals. We think we need to climb a huge mountain, but you just need one little incremental step every day. And that's actually what moves you forward in anything: fitness, relationships, career, creative projects. Break it down into bite-sized pieces and then just keep moving forward.
And the idea of perfectionism, and I'm going to just comment on that, which is that perfection doesn't exist. Perfection does not exist. And perfection is a construct that has been created, but in fact, nothing is perfect. Nothing is perfect. And by the way, no one is perfect. And it's the hardest place for us to accept that is within ourselves. And there is this idea of being enough. And so we can oftentimes create some kind of a goal that is a very lofty goal. Nothing wrong with that. But you can't jump from here to there in one fell swoop. It's iterations. And so going from being enough, and being enough can be taking a step to get to that space where you can also feel good about your accomplishment.
I love that. We can be hard on ourselves. I take yoga, and my favorite yoga teacher always ends the class by saying, please be kind to yourself and each other. And for most of us, it's easier to be kind to other people than it is to ourselves. And relinquishing that kind of taskmaster, that tough inner voice, and this sort of false promise of perfectionism is so liberating and freeing. And for me personally, and I hear this echoed by the women that come on my show, getting to midlife often means letting go of all the stuff that no longer serves us, like perfectionism, like being so regimented and sort of goal-oriented in a way that feels negative. Getting to midlife is very freeing, which I always say, and I really feel like pop culture gets midlife wrong. They make it seem like it's the end of the road, but for me and for many my listeners, for many of the women that come on my guest shows, midlife is just the beginning. We're just getting started.
I I love that. And one of the things I said, I made a little video for us, and at the beginning, just to let people know that this is happening. And what I said, and what really came to me at the moment, without overthinking it, which we can do sometimes, that may sound familiar to other people as well, is that I said, are we putting a shelf life on ourselves? Are we putting a shelf life on ourselves? Are we putting a kind of an expiration date? And look, there are some things that you may not be able to do, but there are lots of things that you can do. And so are there ways that you can find your next and challenge, because challenge also has gotten really kind of a bad reputation. To be challenged means something bad or terrible, where challenge can be what helps you feel lively, alive, and gets you juicy inside of yourself.
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, I feel I had a wonderful guest on my show, a woman named Gina Perel, who used the term perennial to describe her spirit as she aged. She doesn't like what she calls the age boxes of Gen X, millennial, boomer, Gen Z. She felt it was very limiting, and she embraces the word perennial as somebody who is ever curious and ever growing. And I adore this notion, because you can be a perennial at any chronological age, right? You can be a very stuck in your ways at your 30 and very growth minded at 80. And so I do believe that if you remain perennially curious and perennially open to new experiences, nothing is off limits. Yes, you may need to adjust how it occurs based on your situations, but you can have and do most of the things you want in some form. And I talk to women every week who are doing exactly that. So I'm excited about this notion of just remaining ever curious and ever growing.
Ever curious is, people talk about, there's been a lot said about your inner child. Well, the question is, your inner child isn't about being babyish. It's not that, but it's about having that curiosity, that wonderment, and that being able to take your life experience, right, on the one hand, and then bring curiosity, because there's more to experience, and giving yourself the space to wonder, and giving yourself that freedom to really think about, well, what is it that could be of interest to me? And sometimes you can't know that without getting in there and making it happen. So if you want to give something a try and you're not sure if that thing is right for you or not, give it a try. Get out there, figure out some way of doing it. Listen to a podcast, get onto a course, try something out. Because just trying to come up with decisions, because sometimes people don't know anymore, but what is it that I really want? What is it that makes my insides, helps make my insides sing? And so just like trying to decide about it without getting in there and trying things out can be a better path.
And Dr. RISA, I would also say that you don't have to know how it's going to end to begin, because sometimes people 30. They're like, well, what is this going to mean? And where am I going to end up? And is this the right decision? And I have learned for myself, even just using this podcast as an example, when I began it, I had no clear idea that it would open up a whole new network of people that I was meeting. I met you when we both attended the Fierce Women Conference out on Long Island, which was a wonderful literary event created by a woman who'd been a guest on my podcast. I had no expectation that I would meet so many wonderful women at that event, that you and I would connect, that you would invite me to do this. So, already my world has expanded in ways that I didn't envision. I have decided to write a book, which is something that I did not envision when I launched the podcast, because I have so much wonderful material that I would love to share. So this is just one little example for anyone who's listening to this live. You don't have to know how it's going to end to get started, because you will be, but just by putting yourself in new networks, in new conversations, in new physical places, in a new class, at a new conference, opportunities will come to you and be unlocked that you can't even imagine.
Isn't that At a wonderful part of life. In, yeah, in my family, we have a saying, and those people who know me have heard this, which is that you never know. You never know. You never know. You're sitting next to someone. You start a conversation. You go to a conference. No one there. You jump on a breakout room, and you never know. And sometimes, granted, sometimes, things don't happen, but sometimes they really do. And there are people who you wonder, well, how do they know this? How does that happen to them? You have to be ready for it. You have to step into something. You need to step into something, be ready for it, because as we know in my family, it's like you never know. You never know what one small conversation
Absolutely.
can
There's a
possibly
wonderful
lead
definition
to.
of luck, which is luck is preparation meeting opportunity. So you can be incredibly prepared, but if you're not putting yourself into positions to create opportunity, magic is not going to happen. So, you can do all your homework, and that's wonderful. It's smart to be prepared and to done the research and to made yourself smarter, but you still need to create the magic and unlock it by putting yourself in situations where opportunity, you connect with opportunity.
Right. And one of the ways of doing that is by bringing in new information. So for those of you who are tuning in today and listening to this amazing conversation with Katie Fogarty, who has been a disruptor and a visionary in the area of age positivity and redefining, reworking, and disrupting that whole area, please let people know to come and to join and to follow me so they don't miss this important information. So I have two more questions to ask you, actually. So the first question is, you are a self-starter. You're a self-starter, and one of the things that we know, you're a self-starter, you're an entrepreneur, you're a podcast, all of this, is that you're not taking the proverbial, you're not like, kind of checking in. And there are times that things don't work out. There are times that you feel like you've gotten punched in the gut. And as an entrepreneur and as that person, what would you say, how do you kind of wake up and kind of find that oomph to
I
keep
think that
going?
having resiliency needs to be cultivated. And I think that when things go, and RISA, I'm freezing a little bit. If you're freezing or I'm freezing, but I'm just going to talk as if I'm not frozen in case people, but I, resiliency is a muscle, which we must cultivate. So when something has gone sideways, recognize that you've gone through hard things before. And I remind myself, we all just went through a global pandemic. We've survived the death of loved ones. We've survived job loss or hard bosses. So when you're in a situation that is difficult and challenging, we need to remind ourselves that this too shall pass, because it always does. We also need to, I recommend having sort of a portfolio life where you don't have all your eggs in the one basket, where it's not just your happiness, satisfaction, and inner self-worth is not just in one area. Because you want to make sure that you have a rich personal life and a rich work life, and that you're cultivating your relationships, because then when things are challenging in one area, you're supported in the other area where you're feeling like things are going well.
That's so helpful for us to know, is that when you have your moments of difficulty, you can also think back to, well, what is it that I have done? What obstacles, what challenges have come my way that I have been able to address and manage? And that's important, because in order to be able to be where you are, there's something that you must have done right. Sometimes it's hard for us to find that and put our hands around it at the times that are toughest and when we maybe doubt ourselves the most. But it's at those times that you really need to go take a look and get something in your hands about what you have accomplished and really feel good about, or some sort of aspect of yourself that you can really own. And how would you like us to find you and to get more information from you?
I would love for your listeners to come be a part of the podcast and its community. The name of my show is called A Certain Age Pod. You can find me on Instagram at A Certain Age Pod. My website is at acertainagepod.com. I would also invite all of your listeners to participate in my sister community over on Instagram, which is called Let's Age Out Loud. You can find it at Let's Age Out Loud. And that community spotlights even more stories of women in midlife who are reimagining what it means to be 40, 50, 60, and beyond.
Okay. Last question for you. And and again, if you haven't joined and followed, please follow Dr. RISA RYGER to get all this fantastic information. And by the way, her podcast, I'm hoping at some point in time, I'll let you all know when I'm going to be a guest and we're going to do home. So Katie, what is your next disruption? What is it that you have on your agenda to disrupt?
I'll give you a big one and a small one. So the small one is I want to continue to do weight training because I've learned from all the doctors that come on my show how important it is in midlife to invest in functional fitness, to take care of yourself for longevity. So that's something that I'm going to continue to do. I'm going to disrupt my desire to sit on the sofa and not lift weights. That's a small thing. And my big thing is that I will write this book. And the reason why it's a big thing is that I've been saying I'm going to do it for almost as long as I've had the podcast, and I still haven't done it. So I need to disrupt my schedule, disrupt my time management, and really reinvigorate my commitment to something that I know I'm going to enjoy doing and be so excited once it's done and out in the world.
Well, as a sister in the writing space, and usually into the writing space, we'll check in on each other and make that happen. And what a joy to see you here today, Katie. Thank you so much for going on with me, having this disruptive conversation, sharing your part of your life and your passions with us. Really, really do appreciate it. And for everyone else, thanks so much for joining today. I hope that you have your takeaway. Remember, take something away today that you can do today. Remember, I've saved a seat for you. I've saved a spot for you. And to know in your heart of hearts that positive change can happen at any point.
Thank you.
So see you next time.